Welcome to Life Stories. In today's story, we delve into a dark and twisted family secret that will leave you speechless. What happens when a trusted family member betrays the ones she loves most? This story follows a shocking discovery that uncovers betrayal, manipulation, and the lengths one woman will go to protect her own secrets. As a family struggles to piece together the truth, they find themselves fighting for the safety of a child in grave danger. Stay tuned as we unravel this tale of deception and survival. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to begin today's story. It was an ordinary morning. Or so it seemed. The kind of morning that starts with the hum of the kettle, the smell of fresh coffee in the air, and the gentle stirrings of a family coming to life. My husband, Robert, was in the kitchen preparing breakfast. His usual routine. Our 4-year-old daughter, Emma, was already at the window, gazing out at the world beyond with wide, curious eyes. The day was beginning like any other. But within a few short hours, everything would change forever. You see, my sister-in-law, Olivia, had come back to live with us after her honeymoon. At first, we were all thrilled to have her around, especially with the new baby in the house. Olivia had just given birth to Grace, a beautiful little girl, and we were all excited to welcome her into our family. But soon, something started to feel off. Olivia's return wasn't as joyous as we had hoped. There was something about her, something cold and distant, that began to weigh heavily on my heart. I had always gotten along with Olivia in the past, despite her sharp tongue and her tendency to belittle people. But now, there was a new tension in the air, something unspoken, something that caused her to act in ways that made me uncomfortable. She was demanding, selfish, and the more I tried to be supportive, the more she seemed to distance herself from me. She treated me like a servant in my own home, barking orders, expecting things to be done without so much as a thank you. And I did them. I couldn't help it. I was raised to be polite, to never refuse when someone asked for help, even if it came at the cost of my own peace. It wasn't long before I started to feel the weight of Olivia's presence in our home. The constant demands, the harsh words, and the lack of appreciation all began to wear me down. My in-laws, John and Linda, tried to help as much as they could, but they were older and they had their own ways of dealing with things. Robert, my husband, was caught in the middle. He loved his sister, but he also loved me. The tension between us was palpable, and despite his efforts, he couldn't seem to ease the strain. But things truly took a turn when Olivia came back one evening after being out for a while. Her eyes filled with a strange gleam that I couldn't quite understand. I had just put Emma to bed when I heard Olivia's voice from the hallway. Her footsteps quick and deliberate. She had a secret, I could tell, a secret she was dying to share. I have some news, she said with a sly smile. I'm pregnant, I'm having another baby, and this one will be different. I stood there, frozen. Pregnant? But she had just had Grace not too long ago. What did she mean by this one would be different? I didn't ask. I didn't dare to question her words. But the pit in my stomach grew deeper, the gnawing sensation of unease spreading through me like wildfire. I had always been taught to trust my instincts, and they were telling me that something was terribly wrong. In the days that followed, Olivia's behavior became even more erratic. She demanded more of me, more of everyone. I had to run errands for her, cook her meals at all hours, and listen to her complaints about her new life, about the baby, about everything. She was always discontent, always dissatisfied, and each time she left, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had just witnessed a part of her soul that didn't belong in this world, a part that was dark and hollow, a part that was never going to be satisfied no matter what she had. But the moment that will forever stay etched in my memory, the moment that would change everything, came on a cold, snowy morning. It was still early when I heard Olivia scream, a sound so guttural, so full of terror, that it sent chills down my spine. The baby is gone. I ran to her room, my heart pounding in my chest. Robert was already there, and my in-laws, John and Linda, were not far behind. Olivia stood in the middle of the room, her eyes wide with panic, her hands shaking as she pointed to the empty crib. Grace was gone. Just like that. Without a trace. There were no signs of anyone entering or leaving the room. No broken windows. No signs of struggle. It was as if the baby had simply vanished. We searched the house. Frantic. Our hearts racing in fear. Every room. Every closet. Every drawer. We turned the house upside down. Calling out her name. Praying for some sign. But there was nothing. The house was eerily silent. Except for the pounding of our hearts. And then, just as we were about to lose hope, Emma spoke up. "She's inside," Emma said, pointing toward the window, where the large snowman we had built the night before stood in the yard. "The baby is inside the snowman." At first, we thought she was just imagining things. The innocence of a child's mind playing tricks on her. But Emma was different. She had always had a strange ability to sense things. To see things that others couldn't. I had always trusted her intuition. And for some reason, I knew she was right. I looked at Robert, and without a word, we rushed outside. The snowman loomed in the distance. Its large, round body standing against the cold wind. We didn't hesitate. We tore through the snow, breaking the snowman apart, piece by piece. My hands were shaking, my breath coming in short. Panicked gasps. And then, as the last pieces of snow crumbled away, we found her. Grace was lying there, wrapped in a thin towel. Her small body cold to the touch. She was lifeless. My heart stopped. I felt as though I was in a nightmare I couldn't escape. I held her in my arms. The coldness of her body seeping into my skin. And I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to save her. But we didn't give up. We couldn't. I performed mouth-to-mouth resuscitation while Robert and Linda prepared warm water and blankets. John called 911. His voice trembling with panic. And then, after what felt like an eternity, Grace's tiny chest rose. She was breathing. She was alive. But the relief was short-lived. My mind raced as I tried to process what had just happened. Why would Olivia do this? Why would she leave her baby like this? I had so many questions. But at that moment, there was only one thing that mattered. Grace was alive. And I wasn't going to let anything happen to her. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of a nightmare that would unravel everything I thought I knew about my family and the people I trusted. It was a miracle that Grace survived. The paramedics arrived not long after we managed to revive her. And they took over the process of stabilizing her. Their professionalism, their calmness, it all helped ground us. But as we watched them work, I couldn't shake the feeling that something terrible was lurking just beneath the surface of all of this. Grace's life had been in danger. And Olivia, her own mother, had been the one to put her there. Robert and I were shaken. Our emotions a chaotic mess. We held on to each other tightly. Both terrified. Both unable to speak. My thoughts were racing as I tried to piece together what had just happened. The image of Grace's small, lifeless body still haunted me. How could Olivia do something like this to her own child? The ambulance took Grace to the hospital. And we followed close behind. My mind never stopping. I couldn't stop thinking about Emma's words earlier. The way she had pointed to the snowman and said, "The baby is inside." Emma had always been perceptive. But this was beyond anything I had ever imagined. How could she have known that Grace was in the snowman? Buried deep beneath the snow? My little girl's intuition had saved the day. And I was beginning to wonder just how much more she knew. Things I couldn't even begin to comprehend. At the hospital, after Grace was safely in the care of the doctors, we sat in a small, sterile room waiting for any news. I could hear my heart pounding in my ears, drowning out the sound of the nurses as they moved down the hallway. It wasn't until my mother-in-law, Linda, turned to me with a look of concern that I realized just how tense everything had become. "Mary," she said softly, her voice trembling, "do you think Olivia had something to do with this? I don't know if I can believe it. But something just doesn't feel right." It was the question I had been avoiding. The question that I had tried to keep buried in the back of my mind. But now, as the truth of what had happened began to sink in, I couldn't deny it any longer. Olivia had been acting strangely for weeks. Her behavior growing more erratic with each passing day. The demands, the coldness, The way she pushed us all away while keeping her own secrets, it all pointed to something darker than I wanted to admit. We didn't have answers yet. But I couldn't ignore the truth anymore. Olivia was hiding something. She had been hiding something long before Grace had gone missing. The next few days were a blur of hospital visits, tense conversations, and sleepless nights. Grace had been revived, but the damage was done. We couldn't undo what had happened, and I couldn't ignore the nagging feeling that Olivia was somehow involved. But I couldn't bring myself to confront her just yet. I wasn't ready. Not until I had proof. Not until I could look her in the eye and know for sure that she was the one responsible for putting her baby in that snowman. It wasn't long before my suspicions started to grow into something more concrete. Robert and I had a quiet conversation that evening, the weight of everything pressing down on us. His voice was low, filled with concern as he spoke. "Mary, I don't want to believe it, but I can't shake the feeling that Olivia is hiding something. I think we need to keep an eye on her. Make sure she's not planning something else." His words were chilling, but they made sense. If Olivia was capable of what had already happened, who knew what else she was capable of? I had no choice but to agree with him. We needed to protect Grace, and that meant protecting her from her own mother if necessary. But even as I prepared to take action, I could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on me. Confronting Olivia, accusing her, how could I do that? She was family. She was Robert's sister. Yet, how could I ignore what my daughter had pointed out? Emma's words, her intuition, they had been the key to finding Grace. But now they were becoming a source of dread. What if Emma had seen something more? What if she had seen through the veil of lies that Olivia had woven around us all? The days that followed brought nothing but more questions. We kept visiting Grace at the hospital. But my thoughts never left Olivia. What had driven her to do this? What had happened to the woman I thought I knew? What had happened to the family I had once believed in? It wasn't until a week later, when I was reviewing some old security footage we had set up in our house, that the truth finally began to come into focus. I was scanning through the footage from the night before Grace was found in the snowman. The snowstorm had passed, and everything had been quiet. As I watched the footage, my heart skipped a beat. There, in the middle of the night, I saw Olivia sneaking out into the yard. She was carrying Grace, her movements slow and deliberate. I felt a lump form in my throat as I realized what was happening. Olivia had placed her baby inside that snowman. She had put her own daughter in the cold, hoping that she would never be found. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't a mistake. It was a calculated move. A decision made with the coldest of intentions. I felt sick to my stomach. The woman I had trusted, the woman I had welcomed into my home with open arms, had done this. I had to confront her now. I had to face the truth, no matter how hard it was. The next day, Robert and I sat down with my in-laws. We couldn't keep pretending that everything was fine. We needed to confront Olivia, and we needed to do it before it was too late. I wasn't sure how I was going to handle it. I wasn't sure what Olivia would do when she realized we knew the truth. But one thing was certain. I couldn't let her get away with what she had done. Grace deserved better, and I was ready to do whatever it took to protect her. The moment of confrontation was inevitable. We had all seen the footage. The cold, calculating movements of Olivia as she had taken Grace and hidden her in the snowman. The proof was there. There was no denying it anymore. I knew that what I was about to do would change everything. But I couldn't let it slide. Not when the life of an innocent child was at stake. That evening, Robert, my in-laws, and I sat in the living room, the air thick with tension. We had agreed that Olivia had to be confronted, but none of us were prepared for what might happen once the truth came out. My hands shook as I held the phone in my hand, preparing to dial Olivia's number. I wasn't sure if I was ready, but I had to be. I had to do this for Grace, for the family, for the safety of everyone involved. As the phone rang, I felt the weight of the moment press heavily on my chest. Olivia answered, her voice calm, almost too calm. "Hello, Mary," she said, a trace of mockery in her tone. "Is something wrong?" Her casual demeanor sent a chill through me. She had no idea what was coming. I took a deep breath and spoke with more resolve than I felt. Olivia, we need to talk. It's about Grace. I could hear the shift in her voice. A slight tremor in the way she spoke. What about Grace? She's fine. She's at the hospital, recovering. I don't understand why you're so upset. I couldn't hold back any longer. I told her about the footage. The security cameras that had captured her actions. And how we had all seen it. I didn't sugarcoat anything. I told her that we knew exactly what she had done. That we knew she had put Grace in the Snowman. That we knew she had tried to kill her. For the first time, I heard a real emotion in her voice. Panic. There was a long pause. And then Olivia let out a nervous laugh. You've got it all wrong. Mary, you don't understand. I didn't mean to. Stop. I cut her off. Stop lying. We have the proof. You can't escape this anymore. You almost killed your own child. Why, Olivia? Why did you do it? I heard her inhale sharply. As if she were gathering herself. The silence between us was deafening. And in that moment, I knew we had broken through. Olivia's wall was starting to crumble. She spoke again, her voice now colder than before. You wouldn't understand, Mary. None of you would. It wasn't supposed to be like this. I didn't have a choice. What do you mean you didn't have a choice? I asked, my voice rising with the anger that had been building in me ever since that morning in the snow. You had a choice. You could have told the truth. You could have faced the consequences like any other person. But instead, you tried to cover up your mistakes. And your daughter paid the price. Olivia's silence lingered for a long moment. And when she finally spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper. I didn't want to lose everything. I didn't want my life to fall apart because of a mistake I made. I had already messed up once with my ex. I thought I could get away with it. Make things right. I wanted to be happy. I wanted to keep my marriage. Keep everything I had. But Grace, she wasn't supposed to be in the way. Her words stunned me. They were raw, full of pain and regret. But they were also the words of a woman who was trying to justify something unspeakable. She wasn't even talking about Grace as a child. As a human being with needs, feelings, and rights. She was talking about her own desires, her own mistakes, and how they had led her to a dark place. You thought you could just erase her? I asked, my voice trembling now, the anger giving way to disbelief. Your own daughter? There was no answer, just a long pause, and then, a final, chilling statement. Maybe I didn't think it through. But it was too late. I already did it, and now I have to live with it. The weight of her words hit me like a hammer. She wasn't sorry, not really. She was sorry she got caught. Sorry she couldn't keep up the charade any longer. But there was no real remorse in her voice. No true repentance for what she had done to Grace. I stood up, my legs shaking. You're going to face the consequences. Olivia, you won't get away with this. I won't let you. I hung up the phone. My body filled with a mixture of fear, anger, and sadness. I felt like I had been standing on the edge of a precipice. And now that the truth had been revealed, there was no turning back. Robert and my in-laws were waiting for me in the living room. I looked at them, my heart heavy, knowing that this was just the beginning of something far worse. Olivia was already unraveling, and now the truth would be exposed for the world to see. There was no way to hide it anymore. The woman who had once been a part of our family was now a stranger to us all. A woman capable of unspeakable things. I didn't know what would happen next. But I knew one thing for certain. I was going to protect Grace. No matter the cost, I would fight for her future, and for the chance to show her what real love and family meant. Olivia might have tried to destroy that, but she would never take it from us. As the night drew on, I sat in the quiet of my home, my thoughts heavy with the knowledge of what we had just uncovered. The road ahead would be long and painful, but for the first time, I felt a sense of clarity. Olivia's actions would no longer control us. We would take back our lives, our peace, and most importantly, Grace's future. The aftermath of Olivia's actions was something none of us could have fully prepared for. The police had arrived not long after our confrontation, and Olivia was taken into custody. her cold demeanor now replaced with the panic of facing the consequences of her actions. The shock of it all had left us reeling. But we knew that we had made the right decision. Grace's life was no longer in danger. And now, it was time for justice to take its course. It was hard to reconcile the woman we had known with the person she had become. The betrayal was deep. But as a family, we rallied around Grace. She had been through more than any child should endure. But now, she had a chance to grow up in a loving home. We decided to adopt her. To raise her as our own. Emma, my daughter, was overjoyed to have a sister. It was beautiful to see them bond. To see Grace finally smiling. Surrounded by the warmth of family. The path forward wasn't easy. There would be scars, emotional wounds that would take time to heal. But I knew that we would face whatever came next together. With love, understanding, and the strength to protect the ones we held dear. Thank you for following this story. For being a part of this journey with us. It's a reminder that sometimes, the truth is hidden in the most unexpected places. But when it comes to light, it has the power to change everything. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more life stories. Until next time, take care, and always cherish the people you love.